Originally, I thought they were just pimples. The first one, the one that appeared on the left side of my forehead, turned up Wednesday morning. I had shuffled from my bedroom to the bathroom, ready to splash cold water on my face in order to properly wake up. I never did that, however, because as I reached for the tap, I absently peered into the mirror, and there it was. An angry red pimple sitting a few centimeters above my left eyebrow, just below my hairline, really. I groaned with frustration when I saw it. Bloody hell. Job interview today, and my stupid body had to go and mess with me. My ex had moved out long ago, unfortunately taking her foundation with her. I could have done with some of that right now, to be honest. I know you weren't meant to touch pimples, but I couldn't help it. I gave it a gentle prod and hissed in pain when something like an electric shock zapped through my body. What the hell? I didn't touch it again, fearing another nasty jolt, but my mind was buzzing. Why had that happened? What was wrong with me? Had I just imagined the shock? No, surely not. My finger hovered over the pimple as I weighed up, touching it again. No, that was stupid. If it hurt, leave it alone. Confused and just a tad wary, I turned from the mirror and began getting ready for the day. On the way out my front door, I caught sight of the pimple again. It was sitting on my forehead, mocking me. "Go away," I growled under my breath, then quickly left before I found myself in a full-blown conversation with my reflection. I had no car, and the closest bus wasn't coming for another 20 minutes. I didn't mind, I needed the walk. I was applying for a job at a supermarket only a few blocks from my house, so it wasn't like I needed to walk for ages. It was a sunny day, and I found myself growing to enjoy the walk. My hair flopped into my face, and I automatically went to brush it back, but then froze with my hand close to the pimple. I remembered the pain and dropped my hand. My hair wasn't bothering me enough to risk another dose of unpleasantness. I knew I'd touch it sooner or later and wasn't looking forward to that moment. For now, though, I would try and leave it alone. Maybe it would be gone by tomorrow. I stopped at a pedestrian crossing, waiting for the little green figure to light up, signaling it was okay to go. When it came, I stepped into the road and then had to jump back abruptly as a black car ran the stoplight, almost plowing into me and a few other pedestrians on the way past. I saw spinning wheels with bright red rims and tinted windows flash past my eyes. Then the car was disappearing into the distance, the smell of burnt rubber and complete stupidity lingering in my nose. "Asshole!" I yelled after the car, knowing it was ineffective but too mad to care. The car had come dangerously close to nicking a pram that a younger mother was pushing, and the baby inside the pram had begun to cry. The mother looked very shaken, and I impulsively reached out and touched her shoulder. We were still standing in the road, and cars were now beeping at us to move. "Come on," I said gently. "We should go before another car does." She nodded, still looking very pale, and allowed me to lead her in the pram across the road. I lifted the pram onto the opposite curb and bent to check on the child. It had stopped crying and was staring up at me with huge, watery eyes. I smiled at it and turned back to the mother, who took a deep breath. "Thank you," she said, and I waved her thanks away. "All good. I'm just glad no one was hurt." She looked into the pram and touched her child's face tenderly. "Makes me so angry knowing my baby has to grow up in a world where people like that exist." I glanced off down the road to where the black car had gone. Everything would be so much better if they didn't, right? I cracked a smile, trying to cheer her up, and she gave a small one in return. "Damn right," she replied. And as she did, a sharp pain suddenly pulsed through my forehead, right where my pimple sat. I winced at the feeling. The mother noticed, and with a tone of concern asked, "Are you okay?" Again, I waved her away. "Yeah, thank you. Just got a bit of a headache. I should go. I've got a job interview and it won't be a great first impression if I'm late." "Oh, good luck." The mother smiled at me once more, and this time it was more cheerful. "Thank you again." "No problem." As we parted ways, I realized my hand was on my head and had been unconsciously rubbing the pimple. I don't know what was more disconcerting, the fact that it wasn't hurting me this time, or the fact that I hadn't even noticed I was touching it in the first place. I went to the interview, and despite my mind being distracted on the speeding car and my annoying pimple, I thought it went better than expected. I left the supermarket feeling a little happier, and so naturally, when stepping out into the car park, which car did I see parked directly in front of me? The black one, with the red rims and the tinted windows. Another sharp pain went through my head, and I touched the pimple without thinking, then paused. It felt bigger. Was that possible? I'd only discovered it a few hours ago, but it was definitely bigger. I traced my fingertips over the surface. It felt hard and round. Strangely, it didn't hurt when I pressed on it. A noise ahead made me forget momentarily about the weird pimple. The driver of the car had opened the door and was stepping out. I didn't register I'd moved until I was standing by the open door, glaring at the man getting out. He was tall and well-muscled, looked like he went to the gym every day. He was wearing black aviator sunglasses and a sneer. I'm not a tall guy, nor do I go to the gym regularly, but something made me stay and hold my ground. The man looked me up and down and then sighed, like I was a minor inconvenience. "What?" My knuckles began to hurt, and I realized I had been balling my hands into fists. "You ran a red light earlier. You almost hit me and others." The man was obnoxiously chewing a bit of gum, and the sound of it made my anger increase. "Didn't hit you though, did I?" he said carelessly. "Yeah, but you almost did." The man shrugged and stepped closer, attempting to intimidate me through his larger stature. "And what are you gonna do about it?" The answer, unfortunately, was nothing. I wanted nothing more than to punch his sunglasses off and knock him to the ground, but I knew physically I couldn't, and he knew it too. He sneered again, then roughly pushed past me without another word. All I could do was watch him walk away like I had watched his car drive away. I couldn't even scratch a rude word into his paint job because the guy had stopped outside the supermarket doors and was just smirking at me. Seething, I turned towards home. My head was now pulsing with a dull ache, and I kept touching the pimple as I walked. It may have been my imagination, but it felt like it had grown even more. Impossible. When I got home, I went straight to the mirror. I expected something like a golf ball-sized lump to be there, but to my surprise, the pimple looked exactly the same size as it had this morning. I touched it in bewilderment. What? But I was sure it had been bigger. Maybe there was nothing wrong with my body and it was just my mind that was messed up. The pimple was still an angry red, still felt hard when I touched it, but it no longer hurt. I didn't know what to do. Googling weird pimple just brought up images I wish I'd never seen, and none of my meager amount of friends had any ideas as to what was wrong. They just said it was a normal part of acne, and I obviously wasn't washing my face well enough or using any acne cream. I had never had a problem with bad acne before, just a few blackheads and whiteheads here and there. Nothing like this. The pimple suddenly felt quite itchy, and I gave it a good scratch, still trying to understand what was going on. Maybe this was just my body going through really late puberty, or maybe it was just God playing a game of his own device where I was the sole participant and had no idea what the rules or the goal was. Whatever it was, I wasn't a fan. I went to bed annoyed, which was never a good thing. Annoyed at the pimple. Annoyed at the arrogant, dangerous speedster who'd almost killed me. Annoyed I couldn't do anything, both about the pimple and the car. Annoyed at life in general. Annoyed at the world and how we all had our places. Assholes like him were always above unemployed, pimply guys like me. If you were rich, good-looking, and able to get away with anything like he did, you were unstoppable. It was only a matter of time before he killed someone with his reckless driving. But I knew people like him. Get a good lawyer, complete a few weeks of community service, and any murder he committed would soon be forgotten. By him, anyway. And there was nothing anyone could do. Was there? I usually dreamt when I was asleep, but following the theme of a weird day, my sleep was just hours of silent blackness. When I woke, I was slightly disoriented. Opening my eyes, I found my vision blurry. I lay there, waiting for everything to clear up, not really bothered. It happens sometimes. When it did, I sat up, swinging my legs out of bed. My feet touched something bumpy, and when I looked, I saw it was my shoes. They were sprawled out on the floor, the laces trailing over the carpet. The soles appeared muddy, which was odd because I had worn them yesterday, and it had been sunny, not rainy. I thought I had put my shoes neatly under the bed before going to sleep, but apparently not. I wondered why I hadn't, and if maybe I had just forgotten to put them away in my frustration at the previous day's events. I struggled to remember, then shrugged. It was too early to think. I must have just dumped them and intended to deal with them in the morning. I padded off to the bathroom to do my usual morning routine, and when I got in there, went straight to the sink, glancing up at the mirror as I did so. It was then that I noticed two very important things. My pimple was gone. In its place, protruding from the left side of my forehead like it had been there all along, was a glossy black horn. Yeah, an actual, sharp as hell, real as hell, bull-like horn. And in the sink, one lens shattered, glass lying in pieces, was a pair of dark aviator sunglasses. These last 2 days have been... I really don't know how to put it, but strange is the first thing that comes to mind. I've never been the superstitious type, but with each new problem that arises, I feel myself sinking further into the utter absurdity of my situation. So after being a long-time lurker on this sub, I'm looking to you guys for help. Some backstory. My name's Luca, and I'm in 10th grade at some shitty rundown high school near my house. My town has never really been one to have a lot of crime, save for the gas station robbery here and there. But the kids are mean. And when I say mean, I mean that I've come home with black eyes I needed to hide more times than I cared to admit. It's no biggie though. I started bulking up last year for lacrosse, and no one seems to mess with me much anymore. That seemed to be the case with everyone transitioning from middle to high school, which was a pleasant surprise to all the teachers who preached anti-bullying, but never did anything to rectify the problems. I guess they were happy that they didn't have to do the work involved with catching bullies anymore, as if they did it at all. Well, I wish I could say that it was a decent transition for everyone, but I'd be lying. There's this kid I have some history with. Not bad history, per se, but enough so that I could know and recognize him on the street. Hell, we were in the same 5th grade class. I liked the kid. I really did. He had dark humor that I found funny, and he knew how to sit in comfortable silence. I wish we could have become better friends. Maybe this whole thing could have been avoided. Anyway, I'll call this kid K for sake of privacy, or if there's ever a case. Not that there would be. Some backstory. In middle school, K was the silent, broody type. You know, like the emo kid who makes World War II jokes every 4 seconds and browses Reddit and, at that time, iFunny. Listen to either death metal or X, no in between. It would be unfair of me to not include that. In those years, I was pretty much the same. I had developed mental health issues and didn't know how to deal with it, so my brain went, oh, fake woke time. And I started making those stupid Bart Simpson edits with the vaporwave over them. You know the ones. But Kay was on a whole different fucking level, guys. Like, I'm talking straight up Boku no Pico at lunch, drawing shitty vent art just to cross out the eyes, stuff like that. To a degree, it was amusing to me. I found him fascinating. And even though my girls-only backstab phase, I could detach myself enough to look at him through the lens of a man looking through the glass at the monkey exhibit at the zoo, just observing. Except, this monkey literally gotten beaten to a pulp every other day. It had got to the point where the kids around him were desensitized to it. Maybe it was because of his naturally standoffish nature, but nobody ever helped him. The few times I tried to report what was happening, the teachers told me they'd look into it and nothing ever happened. I even went to the principal when it got especially bad, and he just brushed it off as boys will be boys. Yeah, like literally psychologically traumatizing a boy for 3+ years of his life can constitute as boys just being boys. I remember the first time he tried to commit suicide. Apparently, he'd been planning it for months and brought a rope to school with him on the excuse that it was for a project. When I saw him leave his backpack for the bathroom, I got a feeling and asked if I could go too. I was the one to talk this kid down from hanging himself on the railing right outside of the school's bathroom. And sadly, I can't say it was my last time doing so. He tried 3 more times throughout his middle school career, and I tried to tell people. I tried to let people know, but nothing came of it. It was as if nobody cared for him in the slightest. Maybe that's why he did what he did. I digress, though. High school only got worse for him. I remember on the first day of school after summer break, he gave me a grin in the hall. This was odd. He looked better. Happy even. I found out later that he'd gone to therapy throughout the summer, had been working out and taking antidepressants, but none of those proved to work in the long run, in my opinion. But I remember later seeing that same depressed, dejected expression plastered on his face later on after having curdled milk poured into his backpack and his hoodie. I tried to go over and help him clean it, but he gave me a weak smile and told me not to worry about it. Every time something happened, I could see him reverting further and further into the boy he used to be, until yesterday, on October 28th, 2019. That's where the backstory ends and the real shit I've been going through begins. That morning, he texted me that we didn't have school that day. I'd been confused, seeing as he hadn't texted me in over a year. He preferred to talk face to face, or rather not at all, and asked my mom, who was a teacher at the elementary school down the road. She told me that, yes, there was school, and that I was going. Damn. I texted back, word for word. LMAO, nah, there's school and we've got that test in Wayne's class, remember? He left me on red. Even more confused than before, I decided to brush it off and get ready. That was probably the gravest mistake I'd ever made. These next parts are somewhat graphic, and though I won't be showing pictures, I don't think even I would be able to handle them. I would definitely skip if you're blood shy or something like that, because this is a count for count recollection of the worst day of my fucking life. He wasn't in Wayne's first period. I was confused at first, seeing as I told him that school was being held today and that he had to be there for the test, but figured he just didn't want to come and stayed home to study for an extra day. I sat down and resigned myself to my fate of flunking this test, but I never got that far. Halfway through the Pledge of Allegiance, the office lady with the most boring voice imaginable stopped talking with a small gasp. We heard the rustling of movement in the background, and then a concealed pop. There was a cry of pain, or fear, or both, and then another 3 pops, and then a thump, ragged, gurgling breathing coming in through the loudspeaker. We, the overtired, overworked, and pessimistic high school students that we were, chuckled at what we thought was just a stupid joke designed to scare us. It was October, after all. But after a few more moments, and a few more pops, and a few more screams that just had to be fake, we heard the faintest, last breath-tinged voice of the woman over the loudspeaker one last time. Active shooter. Code H. Red 911. My teacher stopped flipping through the textbook and looked up to the loudspeaker as if the woman were laying right in front of us, heaving her last breaths in such utter pain and agony, and still finding it in herself to warn the rest of the school. To say that pandemonium broke out would be an understatement. Mr. Wayne quickly turned off the lights and shoved us all into the corner of the room. We sat there, huddled, while people texted their parents goodbye. I was no different. The texts from that day are gone now, but to surmise it, it went to parental unit number 1, that's my mom, and parental unit number 2, my dad. Me. There's an active shooter in the building. I don't know if I'll make it out alive. Parental unit number 1. What? Me. I love you. Parental unit number 1. Call me now, Luca. Me. I can't. Parental unit number 1. This isn't funny, Luca. Luca, respond now. Me. I'm not joking. I need to turn off my phone. I hear shots from down the hall. Parental unit number 1. Don't get off the phone. Me. I love you, Mom. Dad, I love you. Parental unit number 1. Luca. Luca, text back right now. Are you okay? I love you. My dad didn't talk. I think he was at work or something and didn't have time to look at the messages, but I wondered if he watched the live broadcast of the thing. I put my phone in my hoodie the minute I heard a pop from outside our door and closed my eyes as if it would make it all go away. Girls were crying beside me, and the other guys in my class were freaking out, low-key. But the moment I heard the door to the classroom beside us being kicked in and the screams of students cut off by gunshots, an eerie calm washed over me as I stood up, pushing the desks to blockade the door. A couple of other guys and Mr. Wayne caught on and helped me out, retreating back to our spot when we finished. The boot falls thumped nearer to our door with each slow, agonizing second. The door handle shook as the shooter tried to use the conventional way of getting in, but after that proved fruitless, he started trying to kick his way in, like he did the last room. A girl a couple of feet away from me sobbed about how she didn't want to die, and one of them peed her pants. A guy retched in the corner, and a couple of kids had their phones out, recording. I thought to do the same for evidence and pulled out my phone. After a couple of seconds of kicking, I heard a frustrated yell outside the door. It sounded so familiar, and then the gun clacked against the window, the eye through the scope aiming directly next to me, and the trigger was pulled. The bullet flew past me, skimming my ear and lodging into the forehead of a guy, Chris, I think his name was, blood pooling all around his girlfriend's legs. I remember looking through the door's window as the scope came down off the guy's face and meeting Kay's eyes. Everything was so numb. I couldn't even feel the blood in my ears. His expression darkened when he saw me, and he took one more shot, one that would hit the girl who'd peed her pants in the arm, and ran to the next classroom. I was frozen. I didn't know how to move, and yet my camera stayed in place, having caught every single moment of the boy's death in his girlfriend's arms, of this girl's agony of having been shot in the arm, and all of my utter fear the moment I saw Kay. Later, as we were being led outside by the SWAT teams, I took a look around, peering into the classrooms out of sheer morbid curiosity. I regretted looking. It was an absolute massacre. Teachers, students, dead, in a place where they should be safe, less than a year after Stoneman Douglas, which was just 20 minutes away. My parents stood outside, holding each other and looking desperately, tearfully for me, their son, to come out, dead or alive. Seeing that look of pure relief on their faces the moment they saw me, both mine and the boy's blood all over my clothes, my hands bruised and scratched from moving the desks, my eyes wild and scared, made me want to cry. But I just couldn't. Nothing would come out. After, I got asked questions by the cops. What do you recall? I gave them my video. Do you have any injuries? Pointed to my ear and they got it patched up easily. Did you know the shooter? Yes. Who were they? Kay. That night was spent mostly at the police station, but my parents got me out of there in time for them to take me home and make me dinner. I couldn't eat it. The metallic smell of blood and urine and sweat and primal fear still lingered in my nose and on my skin and in my mind. So I told them that I wasn't hungry and that I needed to shower. The news said that there were 32 casualties. 32 kids, teachers, killed. They detained Kay and had him in custody. He would be awaiting trial for a little while at least. After eating a meager dinner of half a piece of fish and water, I said I wanted to go to bed around 11. Seeing as I was one to stay up for as late as I humanly could, my parents were concerned. Well, more concerned than they already were, but put it up to the shock. I went to bed with tears in my eyes and fell into a fitful sleep, plagued with dreams of death. The next morning is where things get odd. Well, odder. The next morning, my alarm went off as usual. I went to silence it, as there definitely wouldn't be school today with everything that had happened and rolled over. But my mom came in. Mom, Luca, you're gonna be late for school. Get up. I looked up at her with confusion. I wondered why she was making me get up, and wondered for a moment if everything was just a bad dream. But then I brushed my hand across my ear and winced, looking down at my raw palms. Nope, definitely not a dream. Not wanting to look weird though, I got up and got dressed as normal. I couldn't shake the feeling though that I just couldn't be at school. I couldn't be there. The blood that stained the walls. The corpses had to still be there. It was a crime scene, for Pete's sake. But even so, my mom drove me to school and dropped me off, kissing me on the cheek like everything was normal. I walked slowly into Wayne's classroom, looking around fearfully. Kids were sat down working on whatever was on the board, and it looked like a full house of students, save for one. The guy who'd been killed yesterday, Chris, wasn't there. It's not like he had an empty seat, but more so that he didn't have a seat at all. I saw Kay sitting in his usual desk right next to me, and he looked up, his eyes full of knowing. I hoped he didn't know that I knew, too. Mr. Wayne. What are you doing, Mr. Insert last name? Sit down. I hesitantly did so and made a point to shift away from Kay as humanly possible. The girl who'd gotten shot in the arm yesterday now looked good as new, smiling at me with a faint blush covering her cheeks. I can't believe you actually bombed the test that badly, she giggled, a hand coming over to cover her mouth. I chuckled along with her for a moment, confused and afraid. Me. Do you happen to know where Chris is? She got confused at this. Her. Chris? Bergenthal? Me. No, the one in our class. Her. We don't have a Chris in our class. You must be thinking of something else, sorry. This caught me off guard. I looked over at his former girlfriend, and she was talking with her friends, even flirting with one of the guys in her group, without a care in the world. What in the hell was actually going on here? The classroom fell into a sea of low murmurs, and I decided to block it all out, trying to reset my brain for a moment by listening to music. I felt a hand on my shoulder and flinched, hard. I looked up and Kay pulled back when he saw the fear in my eyes. His own eyes narrowed and he peered at me analytically. Kay, you know, don't you?